Alrighty then. Hello everybody. Welcome back. I'd like to make a video which I'm going to be pinning to my YouTube channel landing page as an important reminder of what it is I am fighting for. And I picked the term fighting as opposed to working quite intentionally. A week ago I celebrated my 20th birthday, and it forced me to reflect on a similar video I did last year when I had turned 27. It was a video where I brought up the question of my project achievements, completion status, and general feeling of time slipping away without anything to show for it. I had promised to do more before I turned 28, make further strides in my projects. And in a sense, that was somewhat true. I did make a few interesting prototypes, and I did make progress on the RTAG Rise project, the VR shooter, and the Child of Ether. However, in retrospect, these strides were still within the norm of my usual cycle of hyperproductivity followed by an intense crash into severe burnout. So, despite the progress I've made on average, most of the 27th year of my life had been pretty much squandered on procrastination. Now, in this video, as opposed to redundantly reiterating my last year's message of what it is that I wish to do differently this year, this time around I'm going to identify and pin a set of long-term goals, which will hopefully serve as a crystal clear beacon permeating through the fog of abundant temptations to procrastinate, guiding me through the waves of unseasonal depression and burnout, which caused me to drop off for months on end. I had attempted to create a regular schedule, production schedule on multiple occasions in the past. However, each time I did, I've had major difficulties motivating myself to stick to said schedule. And it is my theory that such a lack of motivation might be caused by a lack of clearly defined long-term goals, which I would be striving for. These long-term goals might also be referred as a mission statement. In order to define those goals, I'm going to be diving a bit into several important points with what may seem like an unnecessary amount of detail, but the reason for that is that in order to communicate and acknowledge the scope and significance of these goals, it is important to recall the history, outline the vital details, and acknowledge the sacrifices that ultimately make up the weight of my situation. It's also important that I preface this by stating that this video is intended first and foremost for myself, as a way of bringing out what may already be known in the subconscious towards the spotlight of facts. Every detail I decide to include and talk about here is here because it is important to comprehend and acknowledge the reality. It will serve as an intentionally identified and clearly articulated reminder of what is or should be important in my life. I also feel that in order to accurately paint the picture of the weight and importance of these realities, it would do them more justice if I expressed them in writing and read them back to you, rather than attempt to communicate them verbally as a stream of shallowly addressed and tangential trains of thought. In a nutshell, these are the long-term goals which I have identified to guide and remind me to keep up a diligent and regular progress in my career. The first goal, my parents' retirement. Most likely, very few of you will know this, but although I am a resident of Canada with a Canadian citizenship, both myself and my brother, including our parents, are of Belarusian origin. In my childhood, we frequently moved between Minsk in Belarus and Moscow in Russia, usually following the opportunities of my father's work as a screenwriter and film producer. My mother, having earned her preschool and kindergarten teacher's qualifications, would always find work wherever my father went, considering there being no shortage of schools no matter where we ended up. However, between all too frequent terror attacks, bombings, shootings, and crime in Moscow, as well as business corruption and personal growth-stifling lack of career opportunities in Belarus, Our parents had made the life changing decision to take me and my brother into what was considered to be the top rated country to live in at the time, Canada. In hindsight, that would explain the peculiar and sudden introduction of English tutors, or English tutor, as well as my parents' inexplicable insistence that I choose French as my school's third language curriculum when I wanted to pick German instead. To prevent this from becoming a more of an autobiography than it already is, I'm going to skip to the crucial detail of this point, which regards the price and sacrifices of my parents' decision to move us to Canada. My father had earned one of his several higher education degrees during his 5-year scholarship in the USSR Commission of Cinematography, a scholarship which had been given to only 12 of 200 candidates, during which his screenplay adaptation of a series of classical novels by Ivan Bunin had been chosen by the USSR Cinematography Union to be produced into a two-part film series, a project which had earned my father a membership with the USSR Cinematography Union, a highly respected and culturally significant establishment responsible for countless film classics of the USSR film era. It is a membership that comes with benefits and connections to the sort of people that make your film works a reality. A membership that serves as a proof of your stellar achievements in the arts and cinematography, and a membership which means diddly squat here in Canada, since Canada and United States alike do not recognize or even bother to acknowledge such achievements due to the location of their procurement. My father had sacrificed his career, status, and future in the film industry in order to get us out of the terror and corruption-ridden Russia and Belarus, a decision which had rendered his scholarly and career achievements unusable and unqualifiable within the Canadian cinematography circles, putting him back at the bottom of the ladder he had spent decades climbing. Furthermore, having Russian and Belarusian culture ingrained in his character, it has been to this day impossible to integrate into the industry circles because these same foreign characteristics make it borderline impossible to be perceived as one of us. Like many respected artists, cinematographers, doctors, and professors migrating to Canada from overseas, well, everyone who's of that status migrating to Canada from the overseas makes reintegrating into the industry pertaining to my father's career has been, through many trials and revelations, turned out to be almost discriminatorily prohibitive on account of my father, in the eyes of the Canadian film industry, being seen as a stranger and an outsider. This was still true even after he had graduated from Ryerson University with a Master's of Arts program, being his fourth earned higher education, following the previous one being the MBA in Strategy Management, which he had acquired in France during my early childhood. Throughout his university education, job hunts and business ventures here in Canada, in an attempt to secure a stable and reliable source of income for us, my mother has been the backbone of the family's financial stability. However, it has been a very spiritually draining road. With her being the only source of stable income, first starting as a babysitter, then balancing college studies and work as a hire at a small apartment-run daycare place, then moving on to opening her own daycare in a townhouse, to today with her running a fully licensed and certified daycare center, for which parents have completely unironically planned the conception of their babies so that it would be born, or the baby would be born and brought up to the right age, right around the time a free spot would open up at our daycare. This, I think, is the true testament to the quality of the childcare mission to which my mother has committed. It is perhaps very likely that she's the only reason why we still stand here today, but she is still a human and her energy is finite. It's been nearly a decade since she and my father had taken any proper long vacation to rest and recoup their strength. It all hangs on my mother's health. The biggest threat, however, yet lies ahead, as my parents' trial to bring my brother and I to the land of opportunity have also had a severe side effect on their future, with them leaving the benefits of their home country and arriving to Canada in their early middle age. They have missed the opportunity to delegate an adequate amount of funds into their social security, either here or in Belarus. My mother might be a touch better off, but my father's future is far worse. From our recent inquiry, the Canadian pension plan had only $60 a month to give to my father due to the inherent difficulties that came with acquiring an adequate and sustainable family source of income or a job that could allow a decent contribution to those funds. So, goal number one, my goal number one, secure my parents' futures and retirement. It's the least I can do for the sacrifices they have made to bring us here to an environment where I had been exposed to subjects like game development, music and audio, programming and workmanship, all the hobbies that I've come to learn and enjoy, most of which I would have most likely not even known about. I would not have known of had we stayed in Belarus or Russia. This is the reason number one to pick myself up, do something about my chronic procrastination, and get work done. Goal number two, use everything I had learned to give my dad a fighting chance in a screenplay industry, in the Canadian film industry. Unlike my dad, I have had the significant advantage of growing in the Canadian environment. I've been exposed to the Canadian way of thinking, the mannerisms and the expressions that subconsciously mark you as one of us. It is this experience that allows me to more easily interact with the environment. And I suppose my father got extremely fortunate that, or extremely lucky that many of my interests have somehow happened to grow and coincide closely with his own. With screenplay and storytelling being the most important, the most prominent one. Only difference is that in my case, it has taken the path of video game development rather than cinematography. However, the rules of storytelling for both are nearly universal. My father has been mentoring me in the art of storytelling, and with every conversation, with every analysis of one of my story ideas, I have had the chance to witness the genius of his storytelling abilities and how much of a gem the Canadian cinematography industry is losing out on. I would like nothing more for him to finally reach a place, find his place in the American film industry, and have his abilities recognized so he can continue the career he's dedicated his entire life to. The subject of storytelling and screenplay writing had been an ever-evolving subject in my father's mind. The science, philosophy, and innumerous intricacies of storytelling have been mulled over, broken down, and analyzed on such a microscopic level that around the time I was born, my father had started developing an analytical and algorithmic approach to storytelling, which he has been turning into a piece of software, and now with my help, with my knowledge of web development, turning it into a web-based screenplay writing application. As an amateur storyteller, I have bore witness on numerous occasions how my father applies the algorithm to my stories and turns what would have been weeks, if not months, of exhausting, burnout-ridden brainstorming to come to some sort of a marginally useful idea into mere hours of laser-concentrated, damn near surgical precision level analysis of my stories. He has been gradually teaching me this approach as I have been incrementally maturing and coming to understand such subjects. It is perhaps his greatest weapon, which had impressed upon me the gargantuan difference between mine and his level of thought. Today, many of my projects have come to be story-based, precisely because I recognize the immense benefit of having nothing short of a literary genius for a father. I also see this as an opportunity to put my father into the spotlight and, through my work, get his name out there. So, goal number 2. Work towards getting my father's name out there, since the Canadian film industry has repeatedly passed over my father, offering no opportunity to even so much as prove his worth as a screenwriter. Perhaps it may be one of my own projects that will open that door for him instead. He's recently, he's certainly not given up on his dream, far from it. It's just that during the past decade, supporting the family has been a much more pressing matter and an absolute top priority. As such, every day I procrastinate, I do not only stifle myself, but also diminish my father's chance to continue his chosen and beloved career path. Goal number 3, build a team. This is where I can get to putting my own goals on the line as well. As the years go by, through my experience with independent game development, I have come to see with ever growing clarity that I realize most of my game ideas, I need a team. As I realize most of my game ideas that I need a team, and to get a team, I need funding. If I stay on the path of solo development, I will only be able to produce so many games in one lifespan. And in order to increase the output, I have to offload some of the work onto others who are more talented than me, and who can deliver better quality media than I can, allowing me to make larger strides in the progress of my game projects. To do that, I require financial project backing, and every day I procrastinate, I delay, or even miss out on an opportunity to get said backing. Thus, for every minute I needlessly procrastinate, I lose time that could have been spent producing an interesting prototype, a demo, or a pitch that could have led to the funding of my production team. Goal number 4, buying, not renting a house. This particular goal is heavily tied into goal number 3, building a team. To station that team, I would need a base of operation, and considering the ludicrous retail space costs, I would rather use those funds to either hire extra talent or even pay for the house as a secure capital. I see buying a house as and turning it into a home studio as the most promising solution to pursuing my career as a game developer. Currently, a house, in my eyes, is the ideal place to develop said career. More so considering that at present, building a family or even engaging in a personal relationship is not my top priority. Not with the uncertainty of my own financial stability to support said family. As much as my parents, my mom especially, likes to hint towards grandchildren, building a family in 2020 is not the same as it was in 1990s. The stakes are higher. The cost of failure is immense. Not to mention it being a major hit on your financial stability, and it being an 18-year commitment, even more likely, considering the way the economy has been incomprehensibly demolished to no end compared to the 80s and 90s. It's not a responsibility I feel I can shoulder right now, even at 28. On the other hand, building my game development studio in a house means that if or when I begin looking into starting a family, there will be a house within which I can do so in the first place. And hopefully by then I will have grown enough capital to secure a future for my family and be able to support a game development studio at the same time. So, these are my long-term goals. With them identified, articulated, and made a record of, I can take my first steps towards picking myself up from the near catatonic state of self-developmental stagnation in my career. My last year's commitment had only lasted a few months before grinding to a screeching standstill. Hopefully now that I've identified the clear goals I'm working towards, procrastinating will now feel more like a betrayal of my commitment to myself and my family, and efforts to attain those goals, and thus I would find the motivation to keep a regular progress schedule. I've boiled down my many projects to a small set that I can distribute my own time into. These projects are RTAG Rise, a story-based platformer where my father is continually offering an unparalleled amount of editorial contribution to the story and the character development. VR Shooter, a game prototype that is the realization of my long dream of getting into VR game development. Also a story-based project, the action shooter project being developed with a gentleman who's proving to be a promising 3D modeler, texture artist and graphic designer, who, to my bemusement, also happens to be one of the longtime channel viewers. Rick Hales, also known as Hyas. Hi, Hyas. Rick and I are both working on this project pro bono, under the mutual guise of splitting the revenue should the project break even and go into profit. We both understand that this is a risky strategy and accept the investment we both put in is that of finite lifespans. So let's hope the project returns on the investment. The third project is dubbed Child of Ether, a 2.5D story-based survival horror game. It is an open-world, quest-based game following a protagonist's mission to uncover his purpose in a purgatory-like world he has found himself awakened in. The last project I feel worthwhile putting my efforts into is the Retroactive Gamers Venue, a gaming, commentary, and content website which my longtime high school friend and I had started during the gaming content boom of the early 2010s, with names like Markiplier, PewDiePie, and Game Grumps carving out a name for themselves, and we thought we could too. Although the initial incentive for starting Retroactive Gamers had been an attempt to carve out our own slice within the ever-growing popularity of gaming content, as we had matured and grown older and continued recording, we had come to identify that the countless memories, jokes, conversations, and fits of uncontrollable laughter caused by ridiculously random and spontaneous comments made during our play sessions were the real reason why the Retroactive Gamers project had persisted throughout the years, despite receiving no love from the YouTube's algorithm. Starting from 2019, we had decided to move any new gaming content to our own website, retroactivegamers.com, and form it into a sort of memorandum of experiences. It is our memory album of the good times, perfectly captured and recorded, preserved, which we can always come back to and enjoy in our past time. I feel it's worthwhile to put time and effort into the upkeep of the project because every recording session we've had has felt like a vacation from the daily grind. It is an experience which brings me recreation and rejuvenation. It brings me more recreation and rejuvenation than I dare say any amount of recreational drugs or alcohol could ever provide. Not that I necessarily partake in such things. The sheer amount of laughter and joy experienced during our recording sessions renders the need for such things null and void. It is our vacation, and it exists as a place to come back to for some fond memories, first and foremost. This is the end of my message. It's a message from myself as a reminder. It will be pinned to the top of my YouTube channel as a reminder of what it is that I'm working towards. I hope that I will make more progress in the following year than I did last year. If you follow my progress, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the live stream chat and comments under the videos. And until next time, I hope you've learned something.